March 17, 1943. North Atlantic, 400 miles southwest of Iceland. Sonar operator Thomas Hendricks, 22 years old, 3 tours of duty, is hunched over his ASDIC console watching his entire convoy die. The headphones pressed against his ears deliver nothing but static and the distant screams of men burning in oil fires. His equipment, Britain's miracle submarine detector, is completely blind. The U-boats are out there, maybe 2,000 yards away, maybe 200. His screen shows nothing, just the endless green sweep of the cathode ray tube painting empty ocean while torpedoes tear through the convoy like bullets through paper. SC-121, 43 merchant ships. 12 are already gone. The North Atlantic is swallowing 2,300 Allied sailors this month alone, and the technology designed to save them is useless. Standard Admiralty doctrine says trust the ASDIC, trust the science, trust the system. But Hendricks noticed something 3 days earlier during an electrical storm, a pattern buried in the feedback noise, a rhythm that shouldn't exist. What he discovered in those headphones will stop 40 U-boat attacks and save 50,000 lives. But first, he has to survive the night, because right now, the wolves are winning. The spring of 1943 is when Britain starts planning for defeat. They call it Black March. 108 Allied ships sent to the bottom in 31 days. The arithmetic is simple and terrifying. Britain imports 60 million tons of supplies every year to survive. At the current loss rate, the island will starve in 6 weeks, not metaphorically, literally. 6 weeks until the bread stops, the factories go silent, and the war ends with surrender born from an empty stomach. Winston Churchill writes a private note to his chiefs of staff in March 1943. One sentence: the only thing that ever really frightened me during the war was the U-boat peril. Not the Blitz, not Dunkirk. The submarines. Because how do you fight something 400 feet below the surface that kills you from 3 miles away? Convoy C-122, March 16, 1943. 50 merchant ships sailing in a tight box formation across the North Atlantic. It's 3 m.m. The moon is dark. The sea is a heaving black void. In the convoy's center, a Liberty ship called the James Oglethorpe carries 8,000 tons of wheat, tanks, and ammunition. Below deck, 52 merchant sailors are asleep in bunks, most still wearing their boots because they know. Everyone knows you sleep dressed on a convoy. When the torpedo hits, you have maybe 90 seconds before the ship rolls over. The explosion comes without warning. A dull thud that rattles teeth. Then the screaming of tearing metal as freezing seawater rushes into the holds. The Oglethorpe lists 40 degrees to starboard in under a minute. Men in the engine room never make it out. The boilers explode when the water hits them, flash boiling human beings into steam. On deck, sailors jump into an ocean so cold it stops your heart in 4 minutes. The lucky ones drown fast. The unlucky ones float in oil slicks that catch fire, turning the sea into a lake of burning petroleum. A radio man named Peter Mackenzie gets a message out before he goes under. They find it later in the wreckage of a lifeboat, torpedoed, position 52 degrees Narn, 32 degrees Wower. Tell Mum I tried. He was 19 years old. The HMS Starling, one of the convoy escorts, races toward the burning ship, but her captain, Commander Frederick Walker, knows the truth. He can't stop to pick up survivors. Not yet, because stopping makes you a target. The U-boat is still out there reloading, circling, waiting for the rescue ship to become the next victim. Walker stands on the bridge, watching men die in the water while his sonar operator, Thomas Hendricks, presses his headphones tighter against his skull, listening desperately for the sound of the killer. The ASDIC pings, sends out a sound pulse, listens for an echo, pings again. Nothing. Just the rushing static of the ocean and the crackling of distant fires. The screen is empty. The technology is blind. And 2,000 yards away, invisible, untouchable, U-boat 338 is already lining up its next shot. Here's the part that breaks men like Hendricks. The ASDIC system isn't broken. It works exactly as designed. The problem is the design itself. ASDIC sends sound waves through water. If they hit a solid object, a submarine's hull, they bounce back. You see the return echo on your screen, calculate the range and bearing, and drop depth charges. It's brilliant. It's scientific. It won battles in 1941 and 1942. But Admiral Karl Drunitz, the commander of Germany's U-boat fleet, isn't an idiot. He was a submarine captain himself in World War I. He knows sonar's fatal flaw. It only works underwater. So Drinitz changes the rules. His wolf pack tactics are brutally simple. During the day, U-boats stay submerged, silent, following convoys at a distance. Then, at night, they surface. A Type 7 U-boat on the surface isn't a submarine. It's a fast attack craft. It can make 17 knots, faster than most convoy escorts. It sits low in the water, nearly invisible. And most importantly, it's above the thermocline, the layer where sonar waves travel. ASDIC can't touch it. Imagine being a 22-year-old sonar operator sitting in a steel room below the waterline of a warship. Your job is to hear death coming. But the only thing in your ears is static and the rhythmic ping of your own machine shouting into the void. Ping, nothing. Ping, nothing. Then, without warning, you hear it through the hull, the distinct sound of a torpedo's propeller, a high-pitched whine growing louder. You have maybe 8 seconds. You scream into the intercom, but it's already too late. The explosion lifts the ship 3 feet out of the water. The lights go out. Water rushes in. And the worst part? Your equipment never saw it coming. You were listening with a 10-million-pound machine, and you might as well have been deaf. Thomas Hendricks experiences this 6 times in February and March of 1943. 6 convoys, 6 nights of fire and screaming, 6 times watching his ASDIC screen paint empty ocean while ships die. On March 17th, after SC-121 loses its 12th vessel, Hendricks does something that breaks protocol. He takes off his headphones, looks at Commander Walker, and says 5 words that would have gotten him court-martialed on any other ship. "Sir, the equipment is wrong." Walker, exhausted, grieving, stares at the young Welshman. He doesn't yell. He doesn't threaten. He just asks the question that changes everything. Wrong how? Hendricks doesn't have a degree in physics. He doesn't have an engineering background. He's a coal miner's son from Rhondda Valley in Wales who joined the Royal Navy at 17 because the mines were killing his father's lungs, and he wanted to breathe clean air. But he has something the engineers at the Admiralty don't have. He has ears. Not just functional ears, but the kind of ears you develop when you grow up in a valley where sound behaves strangely. His father taught him to listen to the coal seams, to hear the subtle cracks and groans that warned of a collapse hours before it happened. "Sound tells the truth," his father used to say. "Men lie, machines lie. But sound is honest if you know how to listen." April 3rd, 1943. HMS Starling is limping back to Liverpool for repairs after the SC-121 disaster. The North Atlantic is throwing one of its legendary tantrums. 40-foot swells, horizontal rain. Hendricks is on watch in the ASDIC room. The equipment is malfunctioning. The storm is creating electrical interference. Every time lightning strikes, the ASDIC console squeals with feedback, a horrible high-pitched shriek. He's about to report the fault when something stops him. There's a pattern in the noise. Beneath the chaos of the storm, beneath the static and the feedback, there's a rhythm. Low frequency, regular, almost musical. Thump, thump, thump. Like a heartbeat, like machinery. He adjusts the frequency dial, moving below the standard ASDIC range, 35 Hertz, below human speech, below most ambient ocean noise. The manual says there's nothing useful down there. But Hendricks hears it clearly now, a mechanical pulse, 35 Hertz. It's a diesel engine running on the surface, and he just figured out how to track it. The next morning, Hendricks brings it to Walker. He's expecting ridicule. He's expecting to be told he's hearing things, that the storm scrambled his brain, that he should stick to following the manual. Instead, Walker listens, really listens, because Walker is a man who trusts his crew more than he trusts doctrine. "Can you track it?" Walker asks. "I think so, sir. If I tune below standard range, I can hear their engines even when they're running on the surface. The frequency signature is distinct, 30 to 40 hertz, like a heartbeat. Walker stares at the young operator. The engineers at the Admiralty will say it's impossible. Yes, sir, but you're certain. I heard it, sir. For 6 hours during the storm. Constant, regular, mechanical. Walker makes a decision that will save 50,000 lives. Next patrol, you listen at 35 hertz. Ignore what the equipment is supposed to do. Listen for what's actually there. The science behind what Hendricks discovered is actually simple. Diesel engines vibrate. Those vibrations travel through the submarine's hull into the water. Most of the energy is high frequency, easily masked by ocean noise. But there's a harmonic, a low-frequency pulse that travels much farther and cuts through the static. ASDIC was designed to listen above 50 hertz because that's where active sonar returns show up clearly. Nobody thought to listen below. Why would you? You can't hear a submarine's engine with human ears, except Hendricks could. In the chaos of that storm, with the ASDIC's filters blown out by lightning strikes, he heard the truth. The equipment was designed to ignore. The U-boats were never invisible. They were just singing in a frequency nobody was listening to. May 1st, 1943, HMS Starling is hunting. Walker has modified the ASDIC to scan below standard range. Hendricks sits at his console wearing headphones, eyes closed, listening to frequencies that shouldn't exist. The convoy around them is HX-237. 40 ships. 3 U-boats are shadowing it. British intelligence knows they're out there because they broke the German Enigma code. But knowing they're there and finding them are very different problems. Hendricks hears it first. 1,200 hours, a faint pulse at 37 hertz, distance maybe 8,000 yards, bearing 270 degrees, almost due west. Contact, sir. Low-frequency signature, bearing 270. Walker doesn't hesitate. Come to 270. Ahead full. Sound action stations. The Starling turns. Her crew rushes to battle stations. In the ASDIC room, Hendricks keeps his headphones pressed tight against his skull, listening to that mechanical heartbeat grow stronger. 4,000 yards, 2,000 yards, 1,000 yards. The U-boat has no idea it's being tracked. Its commander thinks he's invisible. He's running on the surface, making 16 knots, closing on the convoy from the west. 500 yards. Walker gives the order. Illuminate target. Starling's searchlight cuts through the darkness. There, caught in the beam like a deer on a road, is U-182, Type Fight 6. The submarine's conning tower crew scrambles, diving for the hatches. Too late. Fire. Starling's 4-inch gun barks. The first shell hits the conning tower, killing the watch crew instantly. The second shell punches through the pressure hull just forward of the tower. The U-boat starts taking water. Its dive aborted, wallowing on the surface. Walker doesn't give them time to recover. Starling closes to 200 yards and drops a full pattern of depth charges set to 50 feet. The ocean erupts. 4 explosions bracket the submarine perfectly. The pressure hull cracks. The U-boat goes down stern first, 49 men inside, in under 2 minutes. Hendricks hears it through his headphones. The groaning of collapsing metal. The rush of water. Then silence. The kill report reaches London within hours. Admiral Max Horton, Commander-in-Chief of Western Approaches, reads it 3 times. A U-boat tracked by low-frequency passive detection on the surface at 8,000 yards? He calls Walker personally. Explain your detection method. Walker puts Hendricks on the line. For 20 minutes, the 22-year-old coal miner's son explains acoustic harmonics to an admiral. He talks about diesel engine vibrations, frequency signatures, how you can hear a submarine's heartbeat if you know where to listen. Horton asks one question. Can you teach this? Yes, sir. How many operators do you think you can train? As many as you need, sir. There's a long pause. Then Horton makes the decision that turns the Battle of the Atlantic. I'm sending you 50 students. You have 2 weeks to make them into acoustic hunters. If this works, Hendricks, you'll save the entire convoy system. If it doesn't, we'll have wasted 2 weeks we don't have. It'll work, sir. It had better. Britain is starving. May 15th, 1943. HMS Starling, now working with a full hunter-killer group of 5 ships, all equipped with modified ASDIC, all trained by Hendricks. Contact: 34 Hertz, bearing 045, distance 12,000 yards. This is U-266. Its commander has no idea 5 British warships are tracking his every move. The U-boat runs on the surface for 6 hours, stalking a convoy, completely unaware it's being stalked in return. Walker waits. Patience. Let the U-boat commit. Let it get close to the convoy. Let it think it's safe. U-266 submerges to attack. Now it's an ASDIC range. Hendricks switches from passive low frequency to active sonar. Perfect lock. Range 2,000 yards. Bearing constant. He's lining up a shot on the convoy. Walker orders the attack. 5 ships converge. Depth charges rain down. 200 explosives in under 3 minutes. The ocean boils. U-266 surfaces, crippled, trying to surrender. Walker gives no quarter. A U-boat that surfaces is a U-boat that can dive again. Starling's guns finish it. 45 men gone. May 30th, 1943. U-4. Tracked for 8 hours. Killed at dawn. June 12, 1943. U-4018. Followed for 2 days across 600 miles. Sunk without ever knowing it was being hunted. June 24th, 1943. U-119. Caught on the surface refueling from a milk cow supply submarine. Both boats destroyed. The pattern is undeniable now. The hunters have become the hunted. July 1943. The German submarine service is in crisis. Hertz is getting reports he can't explain. U-boats aren't being attacked anymore, they're being ambushed. The British are somehow detecting submarines on the surface at ranges that should be impossible, tracking them for hours or days before striking. German intelligence suspects radar, but U-boats are equipped with radar detectors and they're not picking up anything. They suspect betrayal, spies, broken codes. They never suspect someone is listening to their engines breathe. The psychological toll is devastating. U-boat crews call it the unseen eye. They feel watched, hunted. They know death is stalking them, but they can't see it, can't hear it, can't fight it. Morale collapses. Crews that used to volunteer for U-boat duty now request transfers to surface ships, to land units, to anywhere but the submarines. Some crews mutiny. Others simply desert. By August 1943, Admiral Dronitz makes the decision that effectively ends the Battle of the Atlantic. He withdraws the majority of his U-boat fleet from the North Atlantic convoy routes. The losses are unsustainable. In May 1943 alone, 41 U-boats are lost. 41. The highest monthly total of the entire war. September 1943. U-221. One of the newest Type INC boats, equipped with rubber coating to absorb sonar, equipped with a snorkel to run diesel engines while submerged, is being tracked by Hendricks. The snorkel is supposed to make submarines undetectable. It's Germany's answer to the acoustic problem they don't even know they have. Instead of surfacing at night, U-boats can now stay submerged and breathe through a tube. The snorkel should make them invisible to passive acoustic detection. It doesn't, because the snorkel creates its own signature. When the diesel engines pull air through the tube, they create a harmonic, a breathing sound. 28 Hertz, even lower than the surface engine's signature. Hendricks hears it, tracks it for 4 days. U-221 never surfaces, never breaks radio silence, never does anything detectable by conventional means. And still, HMS Starling follows it across 1,100 miles of ocean. On September 27th, Walker strikes. U-221 is caught halfway between surface and safety. The depth charges bracket the submarine perfectly. The pressure hull cracks like an egg. 52 men gone in 90 seconds. Walker radios the kill to headquarters. The response is immediate. Confirm method of detection. Low-frequency passive acoustic tracking of snorkel harmonics. There's a long pause. Then Admiral Horton's voice comes through personally. You're telling me you tracked a submerged, rubber-coated, snorkel-equipped U-boat for 4 days and killed it? Yes, sir. Hendricks isolated the breathing signature. Another pause. Every operator needs to learn this, now. Remember that rhythm Hendricks heard in the storm? The one everyone said was impossible? Now entire hunter-killer groups move to its beat. 5-ship formations, all equipped with modified ASDIC, all trained in acoustic hunting, coordinate their attacks like wolves taking down prey. They don't chase U-boats, they stalk them. They listen to them breathe, track them for days, wait for the perfect moment, then strike without warning. By October 1943, the Battle of the Atlantic is effectively over. Dönitz withdraws the majority of his U-boat fleet from the North Atlantic. The losses are unsustainable. The psychological toll on crews is catastrophic. They're volunteering for the Eastern Front to escape submarine duty. The terror has reversed. The tables have turned. And it all came down to one man who refused to accept that the equipment was right and his ears were wrong. If stories of forgotten genius fascinate you, breakthroughs that changed history but vanished from memory, subscribe right now. Ring that bell, because next week we're covering the Marine at Tarawa who made an impossible decision that saved an entire battalion but broke him forever. These stories deserve to be heard. The people who changed the world without recognition, who saved thousands and died in obscurity, they deserve to be remembered. The numbers that Churchill sees in his November 1943 briefing are almost too good to believe. May 1943, Black March aftermath, 43 Allied merchant ships sunk. December 1943, 6 ships lost. The curve didn't just bend, it snapped. Britain's food reserves, which stood at 6 weeks in March, are now at 4 months and climbing. The convoys are getting through. Churchill writes a private memo to Admiral Horton. Just one sentence. The acoustic breakthrough won the Atlantic. But here's what the history books don't tell you. The innovation that saved Western civilization remains classified as most secret until 1977. 34 years. An entire generation grows up never knowing why the U-boats suddenly stopped winning. Thomas Hendricks never sees victory. After the September kill of U-221, he's ordered back to Liverpool to train the next wave of acoustic operators. He spends October through December 1943 teaching 14-hour days, 7 days a week. His training logs show he personally certified 422 operators in those 3 months. That's nearly 14 students per day. The pace is inhuman. By January 1944, he's exhausted. Not the normal kind of tired, the kind of exhausted where your body starts shutting down systems to conserve energy. He develops a persistent cough, night sweats. His students notice he's losing weight, but nobody says anything because everyone looks like death in January 1944. On January 18th, Hendricks collapses during a training session. They rush him to the Naval Hospital in Liverpool. The diagnosis is influenza, complicated by pneumonia and exhaustion. In 1944, before widespread antibiotics, that's a death sentence for someone whose immune system is already destroyed by stress and overwork. He dies on January 24th, 1944. Age 22. Thomas Hendricks, the man who saved 50,000 lives and changed naval warfare forever, dies in a hospital bed from influenza. Not a torpedo, not a depth charge, not in some heroic last stand. Just sick, worn out, used up by the war machine that he helped save. His mother, back in Rhondda Valley, receives the standard notification. The Admiralty regrets to inform you that Chief Petty Officer Thomas Hendricks died in service of his country. The letter doesn't mention what he did, couldn't mention it. It was classified. She buries her son, thinking he was just another sonar operator who got sick and died. She never knows he was a genius. She never knows he changed history. Commander Frederick Walker doesn't get much longer. The man who trusted Hendricks when everyone else called him crazy continues hunting U-boats through 1943 and into 1944. He becomes the most successful anti-submarine commander in naval history. 25 confirmed U-boat kills. But the stress of command, the weight of sending men into danger, the endless patrols in the North Atlantic, it breaks him. Walker dies of a cerebral thrombosis, basically a stress-induced stroke, on July 9, 1944. He was 48 years old. 2 of the 3 men responsible for turning the Battle of the Atlantic, Hendricks and Walker, die of exhaustion before the war even ends. They win the battle, but lose their lives to the victory. The acoustic detection method Hendricks pioneered doesn't end with World War II. It becomes the foundation of modern submarine warfare. Today's Virginia-class submarines are so quiet, they're literally harder to detect than biological whale sounds. The acoustic signature of a modern attack submarine at slow speed is below ambient ocean noise. But the detection methods have evolved too. Modern sonar operators use computer-assisted analysis, but they're still doing fundamentally what Hendricks did. They're listening for patterns, harmonics, the sounds that shouldn't be there. They're trained to close their eyes and hear with their minds, not just their ears. Hendricks' teaching method, the one where he made students hum frequencies and learn to recognize patterns instinctively, that's still used in submarine warfare schools today. They don't know they're following his curriculum. It's just how it's done. That's the ultimate legacy. When your innovation becomes so standard that nobody remembers it was once revolutionary. Right now, today, as you're listening to this, there are sonar operators on attack submarines in the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Arctic, wearing headphones and listening for patterns. They're hunting using methods refined over 80 years from the moment Hendricks heard that rhythm in the storm. They don't know his name. That's the curse of breakthrough innovation. It becomes standard practice so quickly that we forget it was ever revolutionary. Thomas Hendricks saved 50,000 lives. He changed naval warfare forever. He died at 22 in a hospital bed, forgotten by history until now. This video is his memorial. Hendricks never got his statue. Let this video be his memorial. I'll see you in the next one.